comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast. Now, here's your host, Tony D'Angelo.
And a very good afternoon to you wherever you may be. It's afternoon here on the East Coast. And I am Tony D'Angelo, your host of Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast. And man, have I got a show for you today. I have for you James Drury, the Virginian, here on my show. Can you believe it? And you're going to find he is a wonderful, warm-hearted guy. He has wonderful stories. He's down to earth. He's great to talk to. And just a long career in broadcasting. Worked with the greats, became a great himself, and to this day is still active and going around and doing a lot of meetings and causes, and has a group called the Posse that loves him dearly. You're going to find out why. So with that, I'd like you to sit back. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun. And I got a great takeout song for you, The Grassroots, 1972, The Runway. And man, you listen to music like this, you know something good is going to be coming. And let me tell you, this is going to be great. Sit tight, we'll be back in a moment. This is Tony D'Angelo and Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast.
You could be anywhere. The trail doesn't have any signposts after you leave Fort Cavalry. You could be anywhere on the Great Plains in the 1800s, when the West was really wild. Now, this may be Indian territory, and it may look like the Old West, but the time is today, and the place is Freedom Land, a big entertainment park in the Bronx, in the state of New York, just half an hour by subway from Times Square in New York City. Here, they've built the places and the buildings representing 200 years of American history. And riding shotgun across the Great Plains is only one part of the story of our country.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and all the stations along the Comfortably Zoned radio network, I am honored today to be joined by this gentleman, James Drury, the Virginian, and that's not the only thing he did. A wonderful actor, a man with a long history in the motion picture and television business, and at least, and most, to me, a wonderful guy to talk to. Mr. Drury, how are you this afternoon, my friend?
Well, doing very well. We're down here in Houston, Texas, and we're looking to have a big rainstorm this weekend. Father's Day and Monday is supposed to be just pouring here. We may get as much as 9 or 10 inches of rain from all that disturbance, those disturbances down in the Gulf of Mexico. So we're looking for the water, and we could use the water, but maybe not that much at one time.
Yeah, you know, I can relate. I mean, it seemed like last year in the East Coast, we had more rain than we knew what to do with, and then we had the 4 nor'easters. And then we had, and like, we've been getting this beautiful string of weather, but what we've been hearing is we need rain. It's like, go figure.
That's right. Well, you get into a drought pretty fast, and we do here in Texas because it's so hot in the summertime. It's getting into the hundreds, you know. And so it dries everything out, and we need the rain, but it'll probably flood some streets. But we'll be all right here. We were in a high spot during the Hurricane Harvey, and the whole city flooded, and we didn't. So I'm pretty confident we won't this time.
Well, thank God for that, because of course I and all your fans and your friends are always very concerned about you. Now, you had mentioned to me when we were talking before we got started that you'd spent a whole lot of time in New York City, because I was telling you about the Connecticut weather, and you're like, oh yeah, I know it very well. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I was born in New York City, and I made my first trip out of there when I was 6 weeks old with my folks going to their property in Oregon. My dad was a professor at New York University, and my mother was an Oregon farm girl, and she had come to the big city to take some courses, and she happened to take them from my dad, and they fell in love, and she married the professor.
That's a way to get a grade.
Exactly right. So then when I was born, we traveled to the West Coast because she had ranch property in Oregon, and they did have eventually have two ranches out there where primarily where I grew up. We go to Oregon in the summer because my dad wasn't working, and then come back to New York in the wintertime. But after a few years of that, my mother had to stay with the ranches and take care of them, so Dad would come to New York and work during the winter, and then come out at Christmas and Easter and all summer long. So that's how we worked the family dynamic for years, and I went back to NYU to college, and at the end of my junior year, I came to California for a vacation, and 7 days later, I had a contract at MGM, and that's when my whole career started. That was in 1954.
Now, that's amazing. Now, when you were living on the East Coast, were you living right in New York City?
Oh, yes. Yeah, right in New York City. Well, we lived out on Long Island a couple of those years. They had a house in Bethpage for a while and in West Hempstead. But most of the time, my dad had an apartment in New York, and he had one there in a brownstone right by Washington Square Park that he kept for something like 45 years, and it was $30 a month. You know? Rent controlled, and nowadays it would probably be $4,000 a month. You know.
Oh yeah, you'd have to add a few zeros to that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that was how we grew up, and that wasn't the only apartment. We had other apartments around there, but they were all in those days during the Second World War and all that. It was all rent control, so people could get in there, and then they'd stay. If they stayed, they could stay for 50 years and not pay any more rent.
Oh, I remember. I remember. I think a lot of your acting contemporaries kind of claimed that as a personal residence and a permanent residence for years and years and years and years.
Who was that?
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to remember. I think there was one case, I think it was Eli Wallach, and he had a house out in California, but he was trying to say that he was staying in New York City as a permanent resident, and I don't think the Rent Control Board bought that.
Oh, maybe not. Well, if he voted in New York, I think that would make him a permanent resident, you know. But
yeah.
I don't know how that worked. But anyway, people held on to those apartments because they of course, you know, the rent was just astoundingly low, and a lot of them would sublet those apartments to other people for a lot more money.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's true.
But my dad never did. He always kept his. Kept it there, you know. So anyway, that's my connection to New York, and I've been back many times since, and I've worked in the city and done bus and truck tours out of New York and all that sort of thing. So I'm well familiar with it. I never have appeared on Broadway, which I regret, but I did a lot of plays at NYU and different places around in Greenwich Village while I was in college. So I had off-Broadway experience, I guess you could say, but never on Broadway.
Now, was that something you always wanted to do, or did you have another idea for a career before you came to California?
Well, I wanted to be a fireman and a cowboy. And I got to be both in motion pictures. I wanted to do not sure of this, but I think she was an extra. Now, that's a non-speaking role in a couple of silent pictures. I think she was an extra in some silent pictures. But anyway, her main ambition in life was to make sure that my brother and I became child movie stars.
No kidding.
And she took us to all kinds of auditions and all over the place when we were in high school and junior high school and middle school and all that in California. And we never did get hired. We'd go to these cattle calls. My brother and I, he was an actor as well, and she'd take us to these places with auditions. You know, there'd be 1,000 kids there, and they'd look at everybody, and they never hired us for anything, which was a good thing in my view, because, you know, child movie stars have a rather unfortunate history of not
for sure.
as adults.
Well, Paul Peterson has devoted his life.
Not any worse as an adult, but the consensus would be I would be worse than I am now. So I never worked in pictures until I was 20 years old, and that's when I got my contract at MGM, and that had to be approved by the board because I was born in '34, so I'm 84 today, and at that time I started in California, and at MGM I was 20 years old in '54. So that's that chronology, and we went from there, and my brother was highly, extremely talented, gifted actor, but he never had the good fortune that I had, and unfortunately he didn't work nearly as much or have as much recognition as I was able to achieve. So I always felt bad about that because he certainly deserved it. So
I understand. Now actually, the couple of things came to mind there. When you were growing up, was there a favorite actor that you had? And also when you became a young actor getting into the business, was there someone that came along and kind of showed you the ropes and was a role model to you?
Well, absolutely. When I started at MGM, my very first picture was a picture called The Blackboard Jungle with Ben Ford and Anne Francis. And I played a hospital orderly who, when Anne Francis's landlady came to the hospital to bring her a little suitcase full of things for herself when she was having Ben Ford's baby, she handed it to this guy in a white coat, and he said, "Thank you," and stepped out of the shot. And that was me, and that was my introduction to film. So, but just to get back to how I started as an actor, when I was eight years old, we were in New York for the winter that particular winter, and my mother had heard that there was auditions for a children's play, Christmas time play, about King Herod and the Christ Child and all that at the Greenwich Settlement Center in Sheridan Square. So she took me to audition for it, and I got the part of King Herod. And they put the long crepe hair beard on me and the long flowing robes, and I stamped and stormed and yelled around the stage there. But I knew my marks, and I said my words, and at the end of the thing, the people clapped. And I was very impressed by that. I thought, well, if they talk about this, then I want to learn more about it. And I really had no interest in being an actor, but she just literally booted me on stage when I was 8, and that whole thing started.
That really got you there. That's interesting.
Well, I studied it all through junior high and high school and majored it in college, and so I've been studying it. I'm still studying it all my life. It's been acting is a lifelong study of the human race, and that's what I've been involved in all my days. So it's been a wonderful trip. So I have no complaints whatsoever, but I probably, left to my own devices, would not have found that, although I might have. I don't know, but my mother insisted, so she did a wonderful thing for me, among many other things she did for me. So that's I just wanted to make that clear how that all got started.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And, as far as, we who are non-actors looking at the screen and watching actors and, treasuring their works, much like we have done with you. I don't think we appreciate as a public the sacrifices of actors as far as the work, the lines, the nature of the work, the competition, unless you are in a successful series like you were, and that doesn't happen automatically. It's not the steadiest of roles. What is that like emotionally?
Well, you have to be prepared to be run over by a tank every day you get up in the morning. The prevailing thing you hear throughout your career as an actor is no, we don't want you. No, go away. We don't want you. We want 10 other people, but we don't want you. Get out of here right now. Don't ever come back.
And then some.
Yeah. Well, you hear that on a daily basis, but you have to just keep the chip and keep going and keep asking, and eventually somebody may say yes, and they did with me a great many times. So I was extremely fortunate to have the chance to play all the different characters I got to play, and my only regret is that after the Virginian was wrapped up, I didn't get a chance to do very much more motion picture acting. I did a lot of acting on the stage, and I did some film, but not nearly as much as I would like to have done. But it's just the luck of the draw. You have great success, and then after that, sometimes you don't find it again. But that's perfectly understandable and all right. And I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful for everything.
Now, did you ever wish you could have done more non-cowboy related roles?
Well, yes, of course. When I was at NYU studying acting, the whole concentration, the whole emphasis was on the classics, on Shakespeare and Shaw, and Mill, and I had done a great many classical plays, and I worked a great deal in the classical theater. So when I got to California, I thought, well, they'll be putting me in something that'll put my training to use, And the main attitude there was, here is a gun. That is a horse. Horse, and don't get off. So I got, at that time, Westerns were extremely prevalent. There were something like 15 or 16 hours of Western programming on the air every week. And I just had a lot of opportunities to work as an actor in Westerns, and I had been well prepared because of being raised on those ranches in Oregon. I'd been around horses and cattle and stock all my life, and had actually gotten on horseback when I was in diapers. So I really was suited right down to the ground for that kind of activity. And that became apparent, and they kept asking me. So that's how that worked. But I would certainly like to have done some more contemporary things, and I'd like to have done a wide variety of things. The variety is definitely the spice of life, particularly for an actor. And I must say I envy some actors who've been able to play in all kinds of different genres and areas, all kinds of different periods of history. But I wasn't lucky enough to do that, so I just have to accept what I was lucky enough to get, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and a lot of us are as well. Now, going back to 1956, you were in Love Me Tender, and there's two guys I want you to, if you tell me about, because they're a couple of my favorites. One, of course, is Elvis Presley, and the other is Neville Brand.
Right. Well, Elvis was just a very bright young man. We didn't have any idea what his star power was at the time we started that picture. He came on the set, and we didn't know what an Elvis was. We certainly found out, but he was extremely interested in becoming a good motion picture actor. He was constantly full of questions about how to work with the camera and how to work and forget about the camera and be able to sustain the illusion of reality. That's what acting is, the creation of the illusion of reality, by definition. And he wanted to know how to do that, and he was constantly questioning all of us. Richard Egan and Bill Campbell and myself, maybe his older brothers, and we were all quite a bit more experienced than he was. And so we did everything we could to help him, and I will take credit for it. He said to me one time, "How do you learn your lines?" And I said, "I don't ever learn my lines. I learn the play. I learn from the first word to the last word, every word that's in the play, every character's lines. That way, I know I'm not going to make a mistake, and if somebody does make a mistake, maybe I can help them out." So he took that to heart, and I know he said in many interviews he always learned all the lines in the movie. Whatever it was he was doing, he would learn all the lines. So
interesting.
I'm the one who told him that, and I'm proud that I did do that, because it's a great way to operate as an actor. It sounds like a daunting task, but actually, if you keep reading the script, you'll learn all of the script just by repetition and doing it out loud and running your lines with people. And pretty soon you know the whole play, and that's the way it should be, because an actor should be able to completely encompass the entire story. That way he knows where he's immersed and where he's in balance and in harmony with the rest of the story, and so you don't make any glaring mistakes. But back to your question about if there were actors that I admired. Of course, everybody admired Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and John Wayne, and I was no exception to that. But I also admired Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable and a lot of the great stars at that time. I was enthralled by their work, and when I went to work on Lockport Jungle, even on that two-line part, I was around all the time. Because Glenn Ford, who starred in the picture, was in another picture and couldn't be there for the rehearsal with you'll remember there was a story about kids in a classroom, teenagers in a classroom.
Right.
And Sidney Poitier was there, and a bunch of other young actors, and they had to have an actor to play Glenn Ford's part in the rehearsals. So I've been working with these kids for about 3 weeks every day playing Glenn's role, and he knew about that, and they were well prepared. And he came to me and thanked me, and then we became friends, and then we became good friends, and then we became lifelong friends. And he was extremely helpful to me, and a great mentor and a great friend, and gave me great advice in all areas of acting and how to comport myself in the business and so forth. Advice I wish I'd taken more often than I did. But also, when I did Love Me Tender, I got to know Dick Egan very well. I mean, he became a lifelong friend, and we made Tarzana together. And he was a wonderful inspiration and died for me. And then while I was at 26 at Fox, I did a picture called The Last Wagon with Richard Widmark. And Richard Widmark and I became friends and then became lifelong friends. So I look to those guys for guidance and for inspiration, and I certainly profited greatly from knowing them, and I miss them every day. So
I'm sure, and you know, as far as, and if you look at a guy like a Richard Egan or a Richard Widmark, I mean, they were incredibly solid players, and at least to me, they don't get the credit they deserve.
Well, they don't get the credit they deserve, and they were geniuses. That's what they were. They were athlete geniuses. They could convince you of anything, and I mean, they could create a scene out of whole cloth and make you believe it, and they were so close to the bone, you know, with everything they did, that it was a marvelous thing to see, and I tried to, you know, in my best way to not only emulate them, but to follow along in their footsteps, you know. So those were some of the standouts, and there were many others that were helpful to me along the way.
You did some work with Loretta Young, and actually, Mr. Drury, I'm very envious of you because you saw Loretta Young in the flesh. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I had actually, as I remember, I didn't have a whole lot to do with her, but I think I had one scene with her in the Loretta Young Theater or whatever, and then we went off and did another story.
Mm-hmm.
But she was an extremely impressive, legal kind of a lady, and yet she was very, very kind to everybody and very, very friendly and extremely welcoming in every way. So those are my main memories of her. I spent a lot more time with Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, both of whom I worked with, and they were marvelous to be around and be inspired by, and I can't think of enough. Of course, the funny story, they had a great feud going, and
yes,
I had worked with Betty Davis, and she and I had gotten real friendly, and she invited my wife and myself out to dinner at Jason's, and we socialized, and she'd call on the phone and talk to me and so forth. And then the studio hired Joan Crawford to do an episode, and I never heard from Betty Davis again. It
wow.
wasn't my fault that hired her, but that was the end of it. She didn't want anything more to do with me. And so that feud, for whatever it was over, was very real. And Joan Crawford was a lovely, lovely lady and a lovely person, and got along famously. But I had gotten along famously with Betty Davis, but she wasn't going to have anything to do with me once I started fooling around with Crawford, So.
Now, recently, and sadly we lost Clint Walker, who was one of my favorites. I know a very good friend of yours. Some memories of Clint you'd like to share? I really loved his work.
Well, he was a wonderful, wonderful example of American manhood, I guess you could say. He was so impressive and it was impossible to take your eyes off him when he was on the screen. He was so massive, and he was so mercurial as well. He was able to create an illusion of reality that was pervasive, and he carried his fans along with him, and he was beloved by everybody that ever knew him. He was just larger than life and bigger than anything he ever attempted on screen. But he's going to leave a great void where he went away, and we're all poorer for it. I talked to Clint at least once a month for years and years, and just loved the man with all my heart. He's gone. A couple of funny stories about him you may or may not know. He used to be, at one point he was working as a bouncer at a place called the Palomino Club on Lancaster Boulevard in North Hollywood. And that's a cowboy, you could describe it as a cowboy who hit John bar. It was a cowboy bar, a lot of sudden men and real cowboys would go in there on the weekends and get roaring drunk and get fights. It was well known for being a place where people were fighting all the time. And they hired Clint, and he went in there one night, and there was a hell of a brawl going on, and there were 5 or 6 guys fighting out there. And he grabbed 2 of them, one around the neck on one arm and one around the neck on the other arm, and started walking towards the door. Well, when Clint Walker had you around the neck, and he started walking towards the door, he went to the door. No question of any resistance. And he heard this voice saying, Clint, it's me. And he looked down, and he had one of the other bouncers around the head. That's how wild the fight was. He grabbed one of the bouncers. He he's just going to grab somebody and take him out of there.
I just absolutely love that role where he played Posey and the Dirty Dozen, because he just had that, like that childlike sincerity, and it just came through in such a huge man. And another guy whom you don't really hear a whole lot about, and it's a shame.
That's true, and he did great work in everything he worked in, and he was a extremely talented writer as well. He did some books with a friend of mine named Kirby Jonas, and they Western novels, and they turned out very well. They had some falling outs between them, and some of those books, but the ones that and got finished I thought were very, very good, very well done. And he wrote one scene in one of those books about the encounter with a grizzly bear in a campsite that is just the most hilarious thing you've ever read, but I don't think that one ever got published. He talks about this grizzly coming in and getting in the tent and running the people out and then sitting in the campfire and then getting mad and trying to tear everything up. It's just a riot. And fortunately, he never got the grizzly, didn't get a hold of anybody. So we'll see you next week. Okay. Thank you, Lisette. Be careful. Oh, thank you. That's fine. The gal was here bathing my wife, so she comes every week. Comes to they bring them 3 times a week. So I had to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, listen, and I'm believe me, I'm glad you did. I know people are listening because they love to hear you talk about the Virginian, and I just look at the body of work, 249 episodes, 10 years. To this day, what do you think the enduring quality of the Virginian is to just still have this following worldwide?
Well, I think the secret to our success was the idea that for the time and then for all time, the radical idea of doing a 90-minute show. Every network show before that had been either a half hour or an hour. And when we decided to come forth with a 90-minute Western, people hooted and hollered and said it was not going to work and it couldn't be done and blah, blah, blah. Well, we didn't get that memo. And we went ahead and did it. And what it set up for us and for our writers was the opportunity to write great, involved, well-developed guest star roles for men and women. And actors will walk over hot coals or broken glass to play the roles they feel like they want to play. So they came in droves, the great stars of Hollywood, to play in the Virginian because they wanted to play the roles. The roles were beautiful. And we had these marvelous guest stars every week, most of them well-known, big-name performers that had great track records and great accomplishments in their own careers, and they came and worked with us, and it brought our game up to an A game. You know, it made everybody stay on their toes all the
Good
time.
Good people always make you better.
If you're working with Betty Davis, you better goddamn well, pardon my French.
Yes.
But you better be on your toes, you know. So that was, I think, the single most important component to our enduring success, because you can still see these scintillating performers and performances that we were blessed with. And that's my answer to that question.
Now,
the 90-minute format really was what made it work so well.
Now, I mean, I'm going to ask you what will seem like a dumb question, at least to me, I know as I'm asking it, but the pressure of that shooting schedule and all of the shows and all the different parts you had to do on every single day, I mean, what was it like when you came home at night? Were you shaking?
No. I just reveled in it. I never had a bad day. We had had more fun than a barrel of monkeys. And
Wow.
As Orson Welles said so many years ago, making movies is like having the best set of electric chains any boy ever had. And I just loved every minute of it. I enjoyed the fast pace and the fact that at one point I actually appeared in 5 different episodes in one day. We had multiple companies working all over the back lot because we had to make our air dates, and it took us 8 days to make one, and we'd use them up every 5 working days, because we weren't shooting on Saturdays in those days.
Sure.
So used to shoot 6 days a week, but they stopped doing that by the time we started the Virginian. So we had the 5 days on the schedule. We'd have to come up with another one where we had 8 days to make them. So we had to make them 2 and 3 at a time in order to have one finished for the air dates, and that added to the pressure and added to the constant desire to get these done and get them in a place where we could turn them over to the editor, And so, but I just reveled in it. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was not pressure to me. It was a challenge, and you have to step up and meet the challenge. And I did every day and enjoyed it every day.
And the body of work indoors. Now, is there a favorite episode that you have out of the 249?
I loved a lot of them. 2 that always come to mind when I asked that question. There's one called Felicity Spring with Catherine Crawford, which is a love story, and it's really a perfect little picture. It's been one of the highest rated Virginians ever, and people just love it. It's a tearjerker, of course. And then there's another one called A Mountain of the Sun with Dolores Hart. And Dolores Hart made that picture, and 2 days later went into the nunnery.
Went to the convent.
Connecticut, where she's still today.
Mother Dolores, yes.
Mother Dolores, she's up there somewhere, I think, in Connecticut.
Yeah, Bethlehem, I believe, in the western end.
In Connecticut, exactly.
Yes.
And so, for a long time, I wondered if it was something I said, but it was a lifelong desire of hers. But of course, no one, including her closest friends, knew anything about her plans that she was planning to do that. She shocked everybody. She was lined up to do a picture with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
She walked away from all of that and went into the convent. And I talked to her quite often. I haven't talked to her too long now, and you remind me I need to call her. But she's the sweetest, lovely person that you ever met, and just was a champion actress. She had extreme potential as an actress, and she felt like she wanted to dedicate herself to something else, and she did. And you have to admire her character and her dedication, and I do. I admire her immensely. So I need to call her and tell her that.
Boy, yeah, it's. I remember her pictures, and just what a lovely girl. Just.
Oh, she was tremendous, and she had great depth and insight, and so those 2 episodes are probably, you can say if I have any favorites, those are my favorites, but many, many more were shows that I thought were well done, and went along, and of course, fans have favorites and write me about it all the time, and there's just a whole bunch of them that they enjoy again and again. And what I'm gratified by these days is that there's a whole lot of young kids that are watching the Virginian now, and they're not having to be told to watch it. They just sit down.
They watch it because it's good.
And love it, and stay with it, So I have granddads calling me and telling me that the kids are watching it and saying, we don't even tell them to watch it. They just come in the living room when it's on. They sit down and they're enthralled, and they stay there and watch it. So we were able to create something that has enduring value, and I'm so happy because the lessons that we teach, every Western is a morality play. It must show the triumph of good over evil to be called a Western. And there are lessons that can be learned from the Virginian that these kids aren't really being taught anywhere else. So I'm very pleased that they're watching, and I hope they keep watching.
Well, and in our closing moments together, when we did the lead-in, we talked about the following that you have, the work that you do, the charitable work that you do, where you go around to your posse, you bring joy when you come. What is your path in the upcoming days?
Well, my main responsibility is my wife, Ann. Mm-hmm. She's confined to a hospital bed now, and she can get up, but I have help to get her up, and we get to take her to doctor's appointments and so forth. I have a friend that comes over and gets her in the car, and we get to where we're going and gets her out and all that. She is, it's got to the point where I can pick her up, but I'm not confident that I'm not going to drop her, and that's the worst thing you can do.
I understand.
She's 87 now, and we just can't drop her. We can't have her falling. So, because, you get a broken hip, and that's...
Oh, yeah.
That's it. So, anyway, I don't try to move her anymore. I was doing it for a long time, but she just got to be too much for me. And so I'm with her 24/7, and I take care of her needs, and I try to keep her laughing and keep her as comfortable as possible. And that's what we're doing here every day. And I don't have any plans to go anywhere. We did the one little show in Ardmore, Oklahoma, back in, I guess it was May, beginning of May, and that's the only show I'm doing this year that I know of. I have to keep it down because, first of all, if I have to leave, I have to have people in here 24/7 to take care of her.
I understand.
And that costs a fortune, so it's a heavy burden on any venue that wants to have me come. They cost $500 a day just to take care of her. So.
Oh, I know. I've done that.
That's a big problem, and on top of that, she doesn't do as well as she does when I'm here. She doesn't do well at all when I'm gone. So I'm here for the duration. She might live 15 minutes, and she might live 15 years, and I will be cherished every day with her. So.
Well, and Mr. Drury, I mean, we're first of all, we'll be praying for you guys because you mean a lot to us, and I just want to thank you that in the course of your day you decided to come and visit, and I know there's tons of fans that will love this interview, not because I did it, but because it's you, and I know we'll be watching on the website to see what you do, but continued good health. Thank you so much for all you do and have done. And, sir, I am extremely honored today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for calling and talking. And please call me back anytime you want to talk. I'll be delighted to talk to you, Tony.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drury. You take care, and best to the missus.
Okay, and happy Father's Day to you if you're a father.
I'm not, but we'll have happy Father's Day to everyone else out there who's a father. How about that?
Okay, that's perfect. All right, we'll see you later then.
Okay, take care, Mr. Drury. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Murray the K with you on WOR-FM, and to particularly point out something that is happening when it comes to beverages, there is a new drink called Devil Shakes, which is definitely happening.
Bruce.
Yes?
I did what you asked me to do, Bruce.
You did?
I filled the refrigerator with Devil Shake.
How many bottles, Maud?
675.
675 glitzy Devil Shakes.
Glitzy?
Glitzy, Maud. Glitzy. Chocolate flavor. And they're all mine.
Bruce.
Yes?
I don't know what to do with all the meat, cheese, milk, and eggs that I took out.
Doesn't matter, Maud. As long as I have Devil Shake, the great new drink from the makers of Pepsi Cola. It makes me different, you know. Daring.
But what will my family do do for food, Bruce?
Your family?
They can't live on devil shake, Bruce.
They have to eat meat?
They like meat.
They have to eat cheese?
They like cheese.
Milk, eggs?
They like milk and eggs too, Bruce.
I was afraid of this, Maud.
Afraid of what, Bruce?
Your family is trying to break us up.
Devil Shake, the glitzy new chocolate drink for people who are daringly different.
What can I tell you? Special thanks to the Grassroots, Freedom Land, Devil Shakes, the remarkable Dusty Springfield, who's taken us out, and Mr. James Drury, one of the finest actors and finest human beings you're ever going to meet. What an enjoyable time. We'll be back to you real soon with next week's guest, still to be determined, but we're having a good time here, and as it comes, I just love taking it in and bringing it out as it goes. So from Tony D'Angelo here in the wilds of northeastern Connecticut, have a wonderful weekend, and have a wonderful Father's Day to all you fathers out there. Take care. God bless and thanks.